You are listening to Aim Higher, a Catholic podcast designed to instruct and to encourage the daily practice of our faith. Pax et bonum, peace and good to you all. This is Aim Higher podcast. I am Father Anthony, and with me is Sister Catherine. And today we're going to talk about our first youth retreat. It was, earlier this month. We had a long anticipated. It feels like we've been planning this for at least a year. Am I
And
right?
that's pretty much because the idea of it came up at the children's retreat last July.
Mm-hmm.
And, when the idea was first brought up, I was like, "Oh, that's good feedback." And I definitely took it to heart, and we went for it for sure. So,
Well,
and
I remember with one of the things that really prompted it is that I brought with me last year two of the young adults
yes.
from up in Wausau. So they really enjoyed it, and I remember I'm not sure if this was the genesis of it. I think you were there. You were there for that. So if you weren't there, it wouldn't have been the genesis. But I remember them saying that after taking part with a day or two of the children's retreat, saying, "We really wish we had something like this when we were younger in that age."
Mhm.
Because with the children's retreat, as many of you know, we have done podcasts, kind of a recap of the children's retreat, which we will do one again this year.
Yep, it's gonna
Uh,
be a big year.
it is going to be a big one. It is uh, the age range. It's never really so clearly defined, but if I had to put an age range to it, is like 4 to like 12 or 13.
Yeah, that's fair.
Because we have children who are getting older, who are 13 and up, who still want to be involved, but they're more in a leadership role, helping guiding groups to the various little stations of activities that we have. And uh, I forgot why I'm even going down this path, but it is it's a lot of fun.
Mhm.
And the children really respond to it. But because the focus is upon the children and a lot of the activities are age appropriate for them. And when I say
Mhm.
age appropriate, I mean it's designed to really zero in on the younger ages. The older ones who still get something from it are like, you know,
Oh, yeah.
"What
I mean,
about
I get
us?"
something from it.
Well, oh, me too.
Yeah.
Me and Chesterton, uh, or Chesterton and I. This is what was the genesis of it, and it was really exciting to say, "Okay, let's try to make this happen."
Mhm.
And, what was it, back in January when you put out the first
I think so. It had to be pretty early
notification?
that
Not it was it the
I
it
think
it
so,
wasn't the invitation, it was like a notification.
like a flyer. Probably January might sound a little early to some people, but since it was our first one, we had to plant that seed. Um, and then I think I sent another one. I can't remember
Mhm.
if I heard anything from the first one, and maybe that is too early. I probably could go back and look to see when I did it. Um, and so and it was just one of those things I was like, all right, let's pick dates. We picked dates. We obviously and just went for it. And then it was just kind of, well, let's see if we get a response because that still could have just fallen through. It could have
Yeah.
been crickets and more crickets and more crickets. But
You may correct.
I think, yeah, but what was really, I think, extra motivating for me was I'm pretty sure the very first inquiry I got from it was a family in Texas. Okay, so that's like, Texas New York to Texas is not a short little, trip.
Yeah, it's not a short
So f
jaunt.
No, I was trying to say, is jaunt the right word? And I just didn't wanna
It feels
it
good.
I'm sure it is, although our grammar is questionable at this point, word
Mhm.
usage, since we're
We
doubting ourselves so much.
we we put it up to scrutiny, so.
Yes, so to have, like, that, like, someone from that distance looking like, "Wow, can I get more details?"
Mhm,
So, that really is just like, "Alright." And then, of course, there were some people I totally expected, we have the right age young of enough young people out of, the mission in Ohio. There's that mission, there's not anyone under the age of 13. Most of them are actually 18 and over.
mhm,
So, and that family has been coming to the children's retreats, I think almost from the beginning or very close to it. And the youngest
mhm,
daughter is 13 now, and she's probably kind of aged out in being a group probably the last 2 years.
mhm,
Um so, I was pretty sure they were going to come, and of course, they were quick to let me know they wanted to come,
mhm,
and then, we had your 2 from Wisconsin, and then there was another young lady in Wisconsin, and she's the oldest of a family of 8, so my thought in the
mhm.
in the way their their family is, I mean, every year, technically we'll get a new one of them. So and one
Yeah,
year we're gonna get 3 new ones because there's
yeah.
triplets. And so,
I'm gonna need a bigger van.
you might well, and maybe it'll just be a different way to get everybody out there at that point. Because I look at it when the triplets are 13, their oldest sister is going to be 16, and, of course, maybe she'll be like a helper at that point. Um
Mhm,
but not necessarily because, there's been talk about, um, how really we're gonna get more and more younger teens versus older. Because for reference, this youth retreat, we got a great response. Very good.
mhm,
I think we had 10, 18 to 12, full for the ages 12 to 18. We had, 2 people that were I would consider like chaperones, the older sister of the 2 girls from Ohio, and then, of course, our how do I our resident person for this, Bridget from Kentucky, and she brought 2 people with her.
mhm,
So, just as, there was kind of like a gap where we had young teens and
mhm,
then very young adults. So there was a
mhm.
little bit of a contrast there, so there's blending, but the thing is, because we're so scattered, we're making do with what we have, and maybe in the future, we'll have more of, like, a young adult retreat and then a like, the teen. We're willing to do it, it's a matter of people prioritizing getting here in it, and I think everyone did a pretty good job prioritizing and supporting you in bringing the Wisconsin kids here, and, hopefully next year you'll have dad with you. I'm gonna make sure he knows the dates.
I'm not gonna have them all the time, so it's like
I
it also I don't want to restrict him feeling like he has to, but I think he wants
Sure.
to, he enjoys it.
He wants
It's a lot it's fun. The traveling when you travel like that, it in itself, it's part of the vacation, it's part of fun,
Mhm, mhm.
and part of the retreat, and,
But
they were good kids, as far as
yes,
traveling.
and I'll just say that also as we progress in this, maybe we can get more parent involvement, or parish involvement too, like to figure, as a community, like how can we make this possible? Because what we're hoping with this podcast talking about it to give some insight, it's going to be written up in the cherub. It's going to be
Mm,
talked about in the seraph, to shed light that how important this is and what, maybe it'll now that we had like our first one out there and people
yeah,
see it, I mean, we have very generous people in our parishes, and I'm not
yeah,
just talking money, I'm talking time, like, there will be people very invested because we all know how important our faith is, and we all wanna do what we can to and I don't like to keep the children interested, but to keep them growing with it, just like we adults need to grow with it. So,
mhm.
it's I know it's easy just to kind of word it like, "Well, we gotta keep it interesting." Well, the faith is interesting. You just gotta have the time to see it because, as I
You have
mentioned before, lifelong journey.
it opens up the engagement, engaging with the youth. What is it? I've called it. I've used this and I've described to people. I said this is kind of our youth movement. It's not something that's been. It's. I'm not gonna say it's been neglected. I'm just saying that uh, we need to put a greater emphasis upon it and whatever we can do to help because they're dealing with a lot of stuff. Like back in the 90s when we were growing up, we did not have to deal with this stuff.
Mhm.
And especially with the biggest thing, which is a boon, but also a hindrance to spirituality, is social media. It can be very helpful in communicating with each
Mhm.
other,
What
but also it can be unfortunately, I think the negative is many
outweighs
it outweighs the
and
positive.
it's not even necessarily just strictly social media, it's just the, the cell phone in general, the smartphones, and it's kind of funny, and I think I told you, I don't know if your phone does this, but every week it'll give a weekly report on how much you use your phone. I'm like, "Oh, you use your
Yeah,
phone
it does.
42 minutes more this week," and, "Oh, you use your phone 1 hour less this last week." I got a notification that, and it's a humbling moment, I suppose, but according to my app, I used my cell phone 3 hours less that week than I normally do, and,
What's
but
wrong with you?
I know, but part of it is and I'll tell you if you wanna know why there's such a high number on my phone for usage, is because I listen to a lot of stuff while working. Various
Mhm,
podcasts, Catholic Faith radio program, our podcast, audiobooks, that's where all that comes from. I'm not saying I don't play a game or 2, but, uh, it's more of it's more of those things. So, but I didn't have time for that, and, I mean, there were elements in my day during this retreat that I probably could have listened to something while I was working, but I didn't feel the need to because I was constantly thinking as this retreat was going. I mean, there was a lot of planning that went into it and a lot where I just
mhm,
like, I'm gonna have to see how this goes. Lots of lessons learned for next year.
mhm,
But I will say that all the parents should be very pleased at how the young adults or, they're not young adults, the young people the bishop and I were talking, children just doesn't seem to fit right. They didn't seem to be mine to be referred to as children, but young people might be what I'm going with. We'll feel it out. But because one of the many aspects is, there's only so much I could do ahead of time, but, like, the daily schedules, like, how's that really going to look? And even more importantly, that, we had 11 people staying here. No, 10 people staying here because 2 stayed at a hotel. And we have 1 shower. So it's like figuring out the shower schedule, which I actually sat and wrote as we were having our orientation that Monday night when everyone's there. And then I said to them, it's like, look, we have another bathroom to use, but we only have 1 shower. And so I have to assign everybody a shower time. Whether you take a shower every night, that's up to you, but this is your 15-minute window to wash up.
mhm,
And they all handled that very well. The thing is I went into this, I'm not gonna micromanage. These are young people who need an element of freedom to make choices and maybe some mistakes were made, maybe not. But I wasn't gonna be constantly on present. We put free time into their schedule, but a lot of I mean, their schedule is pretty well, um there was a whole lot of free time, and there was a lot of time spent in chapel or just together in our main room in the house. So, and they conducted themselves pretty well with any specific thing I gave them, they responded beautifully, and, so what I wanted to add, and I complimented them after the first night, they left the bathroom in really good shape. For about 10 people having to navigate using it and taking a shower, it was left in a really good state. Because I mean, we've had people stay here in the past that it was not very good experience, and, so I did compliment them on that because I was impressed. They put the
mhm.
towels away, they cleaned up after themselves. They realized I'm not home, and, I didn't wanna put too much too high of expectations. I mean, I do have a list going for next year of certain things I wanna be more clear on that I just didn't know needed to be said, and one of the funnier ones to me is like, well, if you drop food on the floor, pick it up. And I was sharing that one with a friend of mine, and she told her husband, they start laughing because, they have young children kind of thing, but they said, the reason why that's not a huge problem for them is that they have dogs, dogs will clean that up. And I started thinking, it's like, I think all but one of those attendees has a dog at home. So probably dropping food on the floor and forgetting about it wasn't such I mean, I wasn't offended. I'm just kinda like, "Huh, you didn't think to pick that up?" But they probably just never had to because they have dogs. So, one
Mhm.
of those things I need to make clear. But I, I did set an expectation that came to me kinda last minute, but I wanted something that would kind of embrace and when you use discipline, it has a negative connotation, but it's not supposed to. But just I wanted to give them some sort of exercise to kind of control, not to control them, but to give them something to more or less discipline themselves. And it's generally
Mhm.
a custom in a religious house, especially like in chapel. You don't leave until your superior exits first.
Mhm.
That a sign of respect. Yes, there's exceptions to that, but generally speaking, that's the expectation. And I thought, all right, I want to put something to give them a task. And I told them every time you're in the chapel, mass, rosary, and that's the thing. We had mass every day, rosary every. Well, we'll get into that. The 2 days that we were at the property, rosary, night prayers, and I just said what I would like for all of you to do is, practice this custom. You are not to leave the chapel until the friars leave. This is an extraordinary experience in the sense that, normally when they all go to mass, they either have to leave because family time, their family needs to leave or they have catechism classes. There's some sort of sense of rush that maybe people don't really need, but they're just so used to it. And I wanted them to slow down. I wanted them to actually take that time to
Mhm.
having gone to mass or visit the chapel and just kneel, sit, whatever they did quietly for really what it was like 5 minutes that the extra they had to wait. And I'm really glad I also decided to do that because I was, I went to an earlier mass so I could keep up with all the household Martha stuff to keep the flow going. And it was easier for me to see you and His Excellency come in so that that was a signal that soon I'm gonna have children or young people coming in rather than everything's over and everybody kinda comes in all rushed. They were more they were slower. It just helped with my pacing too.
Mhm.
Um,
That makes sense, yeah.
yeah, it's just funny how some things hit you, and I always tell people often my best ideas come when I'm in the chapel in front of the Blessed Sacrament, so, I'm pretty sure that was one of those ideas, and one of the things I pointed out to them early on might even have been the orientation. I said, "For all of you, this is probably the smallest chapel you've been in." I think the young people from Texas, Corpus Christi, the old church was probably comparable to where we are, but I would say we're the smallest. And I said, but take note of it. Yeah, I think so. But
No, no, it's, Rock Falls is smaller.
oh, fair enough. Fair enough.
Well,
Uh,
okay,
oh,
okay, it
it's
depends how you look
close.
at it. You look at it. It's
You
clo
get the measuring tape,
it
and then we'll.
ro um,
You have a
the
bigger
our
sacristy.
the Immaculate Heart, that is yeah, we have a bigger sacristy, it is wider,
Mhm,
but I think as far as length, they're comparable.
mhm,
I think
mhm.
might be, Rock Falls might be a little longer, but they're definitely wider, and the width makes a big difference, actually.
Oh, sure, sure. I mean, well, it was noted by even our young people how small our pews are here in Rochester. So I said, "Yeah, it makes you feel pretty insecure about how you sit, doesn't it?" But
Yeah.
and I'm just like, "Well, if it holds me, it's gonna hold you." Anyway, I pointed out to them what I really love about being here in the small chapel is how much closer you are when mass is being offered, how much you can really see, how much you can
Mhm.
hear, and it's like, soak that in. Take that opportunity, let that just just watch the offertory. When you had your mass, I think that first morning and the bishop assisted you during offertory, I'm watching it, and I started tearing up because it's just so beautiful to actually when you just stop and think what's happening and you give yourself that time, because it doesn't happen every time, but just opening yourself up to just a different experience can help carry that over. So I wanted them to get to love what I love and maybe kind of see how a religious life looks like. And I I'm definitely a Martha, but I was also definitely Mary at the same time as being Martha. I mean, I my focus was getting things in order, and I know all the children or young people appreciated it, and I think they all know how much I love doing it, and as an extension of that, love them. I mean, I am glad how it really went super duper well. I wasn't expecting it not to, but I also just like, "Okay, we're gonna do this." And what's interesting, I was talking to Bridget yesterday, and because 'cause she's been doing the children's retreats for a long time, it's almost like once you finish one, you start thinking about the next one. So at first I thought, "Wow, this normal for me to already thinking about the next one?" And she told me, "No, it's an ongoing thing, and this is just what we get to do." And
Well, it's fresh in your mind,
yes.
so
Oh,
you're analyzing it more clearly and then taking in, like, the feedback we got from the initial feedback we got from our young adults,
yeah,
our young
I
people,
our young
and
people.
you're trying to, like, "Okay, what's the best way of executing that for next year?" And I like kinda the idea of keeping them somewhat involved and talking to them about it, especially those who are
Oh,
older because, um, they then have an invested interest
mhm,
in this, and, yeah, as we were talking about this, for me, a big point of this is vocations. When I say vocations, I don't mean vocations necessarily only to religious life. I'm talking about preparing them for the vocations they're gonna have, whatever God has planned for them. Now, their
mhm,
first vocation is the same vocation we all have, is to be a child of God, to
mhm,
grow up with, that that conviction in our faith, that love for
mhm,
our faith, um, and that is what we're looking to, the reality presenting to them. It's like, you can be a Catholic. You can love God in this world, no matter what's going on in the world, no matter what you read about, you hear, what other people are saying, the example other people are giving you can still be a Catholic. You can still practice that moderation that we are called to perform or called to um uphold. And yes, I it also brings the question of what is my vocation? What does God want of me? And as you said earlier, it kind of gives them an idea of like, oh, this is one of the things that religious get to do. It's like this one of the many things that
mhm.
we
Yeah.
and um you need involved laity just as much as you need religious.
Mhm,
And I'm just want to encourage that, and we've talked about this. Yes, we've had a few conversations about the children's, I saw the youth retreat,
mhm,
since it, and for me, the courage of conviction is a huge point, and
mhm.
you can't expect them to have a conviction for something which they don't have a passion for.
Correct.
And you have to have a passion, you have to be moved. I remember Bishop Lewis giving sermons, Passion Sunday, he said his favorite Sunday to preach on. Not so it's like because 'cause you're not focusing on the passion of Christ, um, as a beginning with, Palm Sunday and then going into, Good Friday. He says, "Yes, we're entering into that portion of the liturgy, but he says the passions, especially in that gospel, were flared up so much like the Pharisees were out to stone our Lord because he said, before Abraham came to be, I am. And I remember in one of his sermons reminding passion is not a sin. Passion is not a bad thing. And unfortunately, in today's colloquialisms, we kind of took passion almost as being a negative thing. It's
Mhm,
not negative. And then, it all depends how it's used in a sentence because you have many other people say, "What is your passion? What do you
mhm.
what moves you? What drives you?" And I look at that and say, all these worldly things, all these worldly endeavors is what people say. It drives me. It moves me. It's like, well, your faith has to be your passion. The loving of God has to be your passion, and then you need to understand that, and it needs to be encouraged.
Well, and who's the ultimate, like, driving force? Like, who do you really want to be your navigator? God. So let God be your navigator. It's many of us rely on, navigation on our phones to get to places. Place God in that spot, right there, right
Mhm.
there. And he's willing to do that for you if you just ask him and of course, cooperate with him.
Got a
Um
right turn, 200 feet, right turn.
or don't go this way, avoid there's an
So,
accident, so avoid that.
alright, alright, make a U-turn, make a U-turn.
And it's funny as you brought up, like, it gave him a little glimpse of what are some potentials as a religious. And
Mhm,
early Monday afternoon before things really kicked off and people were coming in at various times, I was sitting with Bridget and her cousin, and they wanted to know, like, what do I do? So I started listing things, and I'm kind of like, it's one of those things that you don't necessarily think about, and then it doesn't even seem like much. And we start going down the list, like, oh, okay, that's a lot. And I was pretty much done. And then it brought up all the publications, like, oh yeah, I've got this on my plate and this on my plate. It's like
mhm,
there's a lot of variety. I'm never bored, maybe tired at times, but
yeah.
I
Tired,
you know, it's just
bored.
it's yeah, yeah. It's just very there's a lot that can be done, and so it's probably good for me to hear a little bit of a breakdown. It's like, "What all do you do?" It's like, "Okay," and it's like, "Wow,
Mhm.
I do a lot." But there's a lot of days I don't feel like I do a whole bunch.
I
So,
I I've
um,
had people
it
ask
depends.
the question. Yeah.
Yeah,
"What do you
and
do?" It's like,
ultimately, it depends on the day. It
yeah,
so
and some days, yeah, you have to rest more
mhm.
than others.
Oh, I mean, by the time everybody left Friday, I mean, I was getting tired, and I mean, I know I wasn't the only one, but there wasn't a lot of sleep happening for me.
Mhm,
My adrenaline was really kicking in high gear. I
mhm.
remember saying to the bishop one more early morning, he's like, "Yo, this is really great. I mean, I feel good. I don't have to really eat, and I just keep going and going." He's like, "Well, you do realize that you're not gonna be able to keep that up." Because I'm just like, "Wouldn't it be great if I could just be like this all the time?" He's like, and I know,
Aw.
like, common sense, like, it's like, this is just it's the situation. And he's absolutely right because by that 3rd day, as I've described to people, and it was really prominent, I think Friday, that I felt my intellect and my body were 2 separate things. Like, I especially in my face, like, I was thinking and getting stuff done, but I didn't feel attached to my body.
Yeah, I
So
remember
that
you saying that, like,
so
you said,
it's
like, "I wasn't attached to my face." Is that
yeah.
how you put it? I was like,
Yeah,
"You're
I feel
attached
like
to your face?
yeah, my
Okay."
face feels foreign if it doesn't feel like it belongs. So I definitely did
I
rest
think I
on
know what you
Friday.
mean by that. It's almost like you're going through the motions, not in a, not in a
Dreading.
way that, yeah, a dreading
I'm not
or
yeah, I wasn't dreading.
a disinterested way. It's just everything's catching up on you.
Oh, sure.
Your body and you're just kind of getting through.
And there was just a lot of things I just didn't know how it would play out. I mean, as the days went on, the people that offered to vacuum up or wipe down tables, I was like, yes, absolutely. I mean, there's a lot of food that I prepared ahead of time, which I would still do. I mean, you did help me with some prep. I didn't necessarily know what I was going to need until I did it. And so, but
Mhm,
next year I can probably execute a little bit more. I mean, in in early stages of my planning, and this is probably even before I was getting response, I wasn't even planning on doing paper plates. I thought, it's not gonna be that many people, I'll just wash dishes. Well, glad I put that idea because that would have I mean, that would have been too much.
put a pin
Um,
in that one, put a pin
yeah.
in that, yeah.
pin and just say, and then put another pin with a Post-it, like, "Stupid idea," and point there. Y or just like, "You didn't think that through," or "You did, just not right away." I mean, 'cause really the expectation as far as the young people were concerned as far as cleanup is just really let's throw your garbage in the trash, but I wasn't, gonna include them in, like, those aspects because that wasn't the focal point, because they did have
Uh,
a schedule where, mass was at 8 a.m., um, rosary was at noon, we had vespers and nighttime prayers in the afternoon, so there was a lot going on that, they and we had, times for an active service, which maybe we'll have you talk about. One of the things I did realize, though, is and we're gonna make this very clear, because the thing is with our last day, there was that, like, cloud hanging over because you were going to leave sometime late that evening, early morning, so it was like you needed to rest. So it just kind of, like, felt like that was an added pressure, and we also had a group that were also taking a train, and they were leaving late that night. So ultimately, talking with my expert, we're gonna just say, this retreat goes through this day and you can leave Friday because just having that hanging that some people have to leave just made things a little bit more challenging.
yeah, it's like you have to accommodate the day, and,
Mhm,
it takes away from it. I know you were bringing up not having the children, involved. Children, yeah, they're children to me, involved in the cleaning up, and thing is, it's part of a retreat. You go on any retreat anywhere, someone takes care of that for you because
mhm,
you're meant to focus upon, the spirituality. You're meant to focus upon your own prayer life, and with them focusing upon the activities that we had and focusing upon, the conferences that the bishop would give.
oh,
Uh,
yes.
these things is what I want you to think about, and there's also the time of camaraderie, and there wasn't, like, a strict silence being held, but when they had to be silent, they were silent. I I kinda it reminds me of Bishop Lewis, back when I went there as a teenager, and, I remember him saying, "3 days, you are a guest. On the 4th day, you're part of the house, so get to work." So, it's like you all wanna hang out here an extra day, that's fine, but you do that, you're gonna be put to work.
Yeah, and
Uh,
that's probably something that I would consider, I mean, if the same ladies wanna take a train, like, they can't control that the train doesn't leave till 11 o'clock at night, but we work around that.
yeah.
If I know about it, it's easier, and since I already had our first one, I'll be better prepared.
Well, then you don't know what questions to ask, as you said, until you start doing this, you don't
Mhm.
know what to ask people, you don't think about it. Like,
Right.
there was one point for me, I think about, I was told one of the girls had a birthday party to get to on Saturday, so it was like, "Are we gonna get back for that?" I said, "You'll get back on Saturday." "Oh, most definitely." "Okay, good." And then I was sitting there going like, "You know, because it's not till like 1 o'clock, they'll be sleeping." I said, "Perhaps, it'd be easier. I could leave Friday night, like, at
Mhm,
4 in the afternoon, get them back early in the morning, and it should be good." I have the other 2 saying, "We gotta go to work on Saturday." I'm like, "Oh, okay." So, it's just I didn't think, "Oh, yeah, they got jobs."
mhm.
So, it's like,
Yep,
"Alright,
so
we gotta arrange this in a way," because like you said, we want those 3 days to be those 3 days.
mhm,
And so, for me, you come with me, I guess this is hey, for you Wisconsin kids who are listening to me, when we do this, arrange it, we'll be leaving Friday in the afternoon. I like driving through the night. I
mhm.
prefer,
Yep,
for long, trips.
yep.
So, yeah, it's
It's just something that we didn't think we had to be that
logistics.
clear on or work on, but lesson learned. So, all of it was worth it. I mean, and one of the other elements to this retreat, and by the time this episode's released, they will already be available, but His Excellency gave conferences at every mass, and they're at least 30 minutes apiece, but
Mhm.
they're very good sermons, conferences, if you will, and definitely worth a listen to for everyone. I highly encourage the parents of the children who came to this retreat should listen to it and then use that as something to talk with your children about. What did they think about it? But really,
Mhm.
everyone should take a listen to these because it was
Mhm.
very, very insightful, very enjoyable. And I think it was one of the other elements I really wanted our young people to experience is just being around the 2 of you in a
Mhm.
different setting outside of going to mass on Sunday or your mission day or
Mhm.
whatnot, to really just sit. I mean, we had meals together. There's, talking amongst themselves, but talking with us, just and I know some of the, young people even said, having spent this little time with me, you, and his ex, they feel more like they can come talk to us when we see them at other times.
Mhm.
And I get that because I feel that way, more often when I was younger. It's like I need to kind of experience the people, observe the
Mhm.
people, feel out the situation, and then I know what I'm going into. I mean, you're not always gonna be able to do that, but I think it's helpful when you have, some sort of rapport with the clergy, that you feel like
Mhm.
you can really your father does really care about us, and I can call him with anything, and that is true,
Yeah.
I'm saying it here, you can call and talk to Father Anthony about anything, and really His Excellency too, but I will just add that if Father Anthony is your parish priest, that's who you should call first, and if you need to get hold of the bishop, get a hold of me, I'm his secretary, I can work that out for you. But those were very good conferences that will be available. We it was funny after I had put together kind of the itinerary shared with people, I had put on Wednesday, weather permitting, we would go on an outing and we, of course, we allowed for play clothes. Outside of that little section of our retreat, everyone was in church attire. I mean, barring like the free, not the free time, but once they were dismissed for the day, the evening, of course, children were gonna like clean up and change into their sleeping clothes, etc. But other than that outing and that those times, they were in church clothes. Because I pointed out, like, there's gonna be times, you're gonna be back and forth between the chapel. It it's easier just to stay in your church clothes. Make it easier on yourself, and that worked out really well. But I was kind of praying after because I wasn't sure exactly how we were gonna get everybody when I saw the numbers, like, how are we all gonna get to this outing? But it worked out that the family from Texas drove up with a van, so they were able to take 3 extra people, but I was kinda praying for it to rain just so, like, okay. But I think the the outing was necessary. I think everybody kinda needed to get out. I mean, there's plenty to do here, and we would've made it work. I actually did not have a backup plan once I knew the weather was good. I was like, "Okay, not gonna think about it." And it's a, beautiful park here in, upstate New York called Letchworth Park. It's actually considered the Grand Canyon of the East, so I really wanted that experience for them, and they all seem to enjoy it. And I will say that to everyone's credit, because the week we chose this retreat was Ember Week, and for everyone involved, that at least meant on Wednesday, only meet once a day. So Wednesday was no meat for lunch, and so but we made it work. Father made a really good tuna salad that I was surprised there weren't any leftovers.
Yeah.
You know, you
Me too.
you pack I packed bread, peanut butter and jelly. We had, just the usual, and of course, can't forget the cookies. So and it's funny, I started baking cookies probably in May and put them in the freezer, and one big note for next year is I could just keep cookies in the freezer, take out a bag and pass it around, and frozen cookies really hit right. So I probably could had more cookies. And I told them I will have more cookies next year, so be sure to come. So it was all those efforts. I mean, so worth it to me. I had so much
Mhm.
fun. And we pointed out to them that, I went to the earlier mass, but I wasn't there for their mass or the rosary. All during that time, I'm doing the preparation, but as I point out, it's okay for me to do that because, I get to experience these things more regularly than the average person because I'm a religious. So it's my duty to make sure that all of you can take part in it. Even the 2 ladies that were more or less chaperones, I
Mhm.
if I would have asked them to stay behind and help me, they certainly would, but I didn't wanna take that away from them because even though they weren't in the age for the youth retreat, I'm not gonna say, "Well, can you not go to mass today because I need help? Or can you, maybe skip out on this conference and go back 30 minutes later? Can you maybe not say the rosary? Like, no, they need that just as much because it's still something for them. And I get to participate in those things regularly. So, if you want to call it a sacrifice, you can
Yeah.
call it a sacrifice. But but
Alright, I'll
everything
call it a sacrifice.
but everything went well. I mean, I definitely don't need to really buy much in the way of cereal for breakfast. Just, they enjoyed eggs, egg casserole. So
That
that's
egg casserole was really good, so
and as
it
I
wouldn't hit
told him,
the spot.
I measure with my heart. Not so much with baking because you can only there's not really room for wiggle room, but an egg casserole or anything else I put out there, it's like, yeah, I've got a loose idea what needs to happen, and then I've put my heart into the rest of it. They all ate well, and that was an important focal point to make sure.
I'm sorry, it's just it's well, what else we talk about? No, they ate food.
Well, I mean, I think we had a good menu, but I just mean
Oh, it was a
that
very good meal.
we had breakfast, like, at 9:30, and by 1 o'clock, they were ready for lunch, but these are teenagers, and the thing is, we're only accustomed to really eating twice a day here, so it was a little like it's like, "Really? Are they gonna be hungry?" It's like, "Yeah, they were hungry, so good for them." I mean, the saying is it energy is wasted on the youth? Something to that degree?
I've heard something like that, yeah.
Like that. Well, in my kinda going over my head the other day with that, what I was saying in my head was, youth is wasted on the young, which I suppose kind of works, but it sounded kinda silly. But anyway, energy is wasted on the youth. And, yes, the younger people have more energy than we do, but, that's just kinda how it works, but also the reminder of how we need each other. Older people need to be around younger people, just as younger people need to be around the older people and learn from them. But I learned just as much being around younger people as I do people older than me or people my age. People need people. People need to make connections. And we'll get to some of the quotes we got from the children about what they liked about the retreats. And a couple of them does talk about that connection, making a connection, making friends, people who of the same faith, because that's something unfortunately our youth struggle with because we're so scattered. Even though, you have a pretty good sized parish in Wisconsin, no one really lives near each other. I mean, the Wassa kids, that's what, at least a 2-hour drive from Wabaca. And this is where maybe like the social media or the texting comes into play. I think a lot of phone numbers were exchanged among the youth. Maybe, hopefully for some of them they'll keep in touch.
Mhm.
And, but just a reminder, people need people. And one of the things that felt was essential is making that connection because in today's world and in bringing up things, yes, corrections need to be made on various things. And I will add that, correcting is some people may like it more than others. It's not my favorite thing to do, but some things just have to be addressed. And I will say there really wasn't anything really I had to address so much. Not anything that I thought, well, like, they purposely did that. 'Cause this also reminder, this was a new environment for them. One of the things I wanna make clear next year is just reminding them how they conduct themselves when speaking to you and His Excellency. Like, there's a level of respect that just has to happen. And I get that they're not accustomed to that, and I'm not gonna well, I don't wear pearls, but, like, to clutch my pearls because they address adults, more specifically the clergy, a certain way. It's not clutching your pearls worthy because they just don't know. They don't know unless we tell them and we'll really teach them. And you're not gonna really be an effective teacher if it's a one-off, like, I hardly ever taught to this young person, but the one time I do, I'm gonna give a correction. Well, what's that really gonna do? But now that I've made a connection with the youth, I can then address something like that more effectively. I'll be more comfortable with it. Therefore they should be more comfortable with it. And I will add, anytime, they were all very good about asking my permission for things, which I know His Excellency, if any of them came to them, he sent them my way. So they were very good at asking for permission on various things, and they were very good at accepting the few times I had to say no. I mean, I'm a pretty flexible human being, and there were a few things like, yeah, sure, that's not a problem. But there were a couple times I had to say no, and they respected that. And they respect it because they're I mean, I think automatically they would've, but I think they're even more inclined to it because they got to know me a little bit better. And
Mhm.
so, ultimately I just been thinking about this a lot the last few days, and I'll say it I think I said it before. In order to effectively correct, you have to connect. And, I mean, you see that. I mean, a parent to their child is going to correct their child much more effectively because they already have a connection, more so than the rando person that sees something it doesn't like. It's like, yeah, you can go and correct that child. And I understand maybe if it's a moment of safety, like you see this kid running off and they might get hurt, that's one thing. But, if you really want to help them, you have to do more than just criticize. I mean, because again, it might seem like some people like to criticize for fun and are really good at it, and that's their strong suit, but nobody really, as much as we don't like criticism, I don't think the majority of people like to criticize either. Like, that's just not something we wake up every day. It's like, "Oh, who am I gonna criticize today? What fault am I gonna find around the other people?" Because if that's your attitude, if you're not looking at yourself first, that's a bigger problem. And so I hope what I'm saying is making sense and resonates with some people. And maybe this is something we can all kind of strive together is to make more connections with each other. Even though we're all scattered, please know that I love and care for each and every one of you. And I may not always have the answer, but I'll find the answer. And I may say something that might sting a little. And it's for your own good, but I think these children all or young people know that I'm a pretty decent listener, maybe a pretty good mediator if I need to be. Oh, here come the geese. Um, that was a nice thing about all the people here, less geese around. And now that's a whole lot of them. Anyway, so for them to experience that too, and to see a few adults too, really interested in them. And the many highlights is on Thursday one of our parishioners who had moved to New York City, I think a year ago, came unexpectedly for a visit, and she wants just to visit the chapel. Usually, she lets us know when she's busy, but this was kind of spur of the moment. And she stopped inside, and she was just so speechless because first she pulls into the property, and there's a few cars. It's pretty quiet here during the week, so just to come in at a random time and just see energy, and then to come inside and see, because I think we were having lunch at that time, and just to see the energy of young people. I mean, she was just so excited to see it, energized by that, and then finding out what we were doing. And I'm hoping
Yeah.
that by us talking about that and as we share along all those little tidbits, all our other older people will be inspired too and will want to, like, what can I do? And even if all you can do is pray for us, don't think that that's small potatoes. That's actually like the greatest thing. But it was nice to get that reaction. And, like, I know we
Mhm.
were doing a good thing, but just to kinda see it in someone else's face, like, how wonderful this was, and it was wonderful. And I feel like I'm talking a lot, Father.
That's understandable.
I suppose it
You
really was
you invested a lot of your own time, your energy, your industry in it, and there's still the excitement, there's still the
oh, yeah.
it was encouraging, and we know that in this, that it doesn't mean we send the children out back on their way and then forget about no, no, it actually it's different. It's always been this. You always wanted to be there for the younger people and to guide them. But when you begin something like this, it opens up doors to other things you can do, other possibilities of making that connection,
Mhm,
and little things. And what usually what it requires is just a sacrifice. The same type of sacrifices that parents make in order to be able to get their kids to go to their sports game, to the practice, to a concert, whatever it is that they do. Those little sacrifices they make, it's the same type of sacrifices, but this one is for the faith. This one is for them to have that same kind of, I mentioned before, passion and excitement about the faith, making it a part of their lives, not just that thing that they do a few times out of the week or on Sunday. It's who they are. so they know that they identify themselves really with Christ, and that's what you're looking to encourage in. And as I said to the children, young adults, I had this
It's
I
okay,
said,
father.
because we had those kinds of conferences and we were talking, I said, "Our goal is very simple. It's to make other Christs. It's to make you Christ-like. That is the
Mhm,
goal.
mhm,
And with Christ, our Lord, it's moderation." And, it says he does not go from one extreme to another. It's fine. Virtue is in the middle. And that is the thing to encourage. And
mhm.
there are certain things that, as you said, we're going to come back and we're going to modify, we'll correct. But what for me, instead of just say, you need to do this, you need to do that, if I'm going to come to you and say, you need to do something or to fix something of the way you're acting, how you're dressing, or whatever it is, I have to present you with options. As the adult, if I'm giving you using my authority to tell you this, I should have viable options prepared for you and encouraging you in those.
Yeah,
And that is part of what I love with making the connection, because I feel, that we can do this and it'll be better received.
absolutely. And I mean, really, the only thing that really we felt that needs correction is just teaching them the time and place. Like, there's a time that you can kinda
Yeah.
talk silly with people, but when you're addressing the clergy and whatnot, we just need to hone that in. And I mean, again, I even was like, I even had the thought at one point, like back in my day, I would have known to say yes, sister, or yes, father. But we were taught that these
Yes.
they're not. We have to remember they're not for no fault of their own.
Well,
So, and I mean, as far as like dress, I mean, there's a picture of all of you in front of the chapel, and I mean, the dresses that the girls wore are look well, they're definitely modest, of course, but they look comfortable. Like, those are not dresses available for me when I was growing up. Like, it
they're
was
pretty,
definitely.
pretty
Yep,
dresses.
yep,
I
they
mean, they're
all look
stylish
great.
for
Yep,
what they were.
yep,
Of course, I know that could look to me as being like, the spokesman of what's stylish, but
right.
it is so very encouraging and want to build off of it. Just
Mhm,
not say, well, just do the same thing, but what can we do more? What can do better? And we went to them. So,
mhm,
what are other things that we could do? What did you take from it? We asked them
mhm,
those questions. What was your favorite part?
mhm.
And I know that a lot of them wrote them down.
Yep,
Oh, you got it there.
I've got 'em ready
And
to go.
I one thing they brought up, and it's like, why didn't we think of this? It was like, well, during one of the nights, having, like, a movie night,
I
watching,
did think
or
about
maybe,
it.
like, every night.
It just
Well,
it
I
just
did.
didn't seem practical. It didn't seem practical in my mind, but knowing that that was like, "Yes, we should do that," and
Yeah,
already Bridget has a projector and one of the ladies here has a screen. So we already have what we need to do that. So that'll be very exciting.
and, we've already figured out, if there's only be one movie, we've already know which one it's going to be.
Mhm,
It is a religious movie. It is about a saint, and I'm gonna leave it there.
mhm.
I'll be interested to see if anyone can kinda guess what movie it is. What
Yeah,
movie?
I mean, or it could be more than one saint.
It could be more than one.
Yep. So, no, that'll be because when I was talking to the girls that were leaving that night at the train station, I think I threw it out there like, "Oh, yeah, that would've been great." As one of them pointed out, it would give us a chance to kinda calm down and yet be together, 'cause
Yeah.
the energy is high with these youngins. So, I mean, and
With
they were very good. I mean,
with them
li
youngin'.
the lights out was 11 o'clock.
I know,
Which I know sounds late, but when you factor in shower times and all
yeah,
that, but
yeah,
they didn't have to get up until I rang the bell at 6:30, so they had, a chance to sleep at least 7 hours. And it's not like we were
yeah.
working them hard. I mean, the only thing I think we and they did great with it was learning how to polish church items, vessels,
Oh,
which
yeah, those are to kinda are activities.
active
Active
service.
service. In the idea with that, and I think it was a really good idea, I think it was your idea, sister,
Mhm,
that introducing them to things that you can do around the church, because
mhm,
the church is your spiritual home. and there are things you have to do to maintain it, just like you do with your where you your regular home where you live. And when you have the knowledge of what you can do, then you can, be more comfortable and say, "Father, do you need help with this? Can I come and help with that?" And the big thing, polishing. So much needs to be polished for the liturgy.
Mhm.
Uh, you know, Followers on candles, is a big thing.
Yes.
Various items like the thurible and the, incense boat and, not the chalice, the chalice there with the top of the tabernacle we polished, and that thing
That
was
looks great.
shining. That was
Mhm.
shining great. And, I'll say it was a lot quicker when you have about, 8 to 10 people all polishing
Yes.
at the same
Yep.
time. And
It
they did a nice job.
it went super well. Bridget said, next year she'll see if there's anything she can bring up from Kentucky, and you could bring stuff from Wisconsin because I think we could do that twice. It was just a good experience because as I was talking with her at one point, because there's always been people taking care of these things, and there's always, like, that worry, it's like, "Well, who's gonna do that when I no longer do?" It's like, well, people
Yeah,
will step up kinda when you get out of the picture, but if you're kinda gatekeeping things, no one's really gonna ask. I I remember before I came here a couple years before that, the sacristan, she would do the flowers, and she asked me, "Would I be interested if I took a turn every other week?" And I love doing that, but I never would thought to offer because someone always did it. So it does
yeah,
take that person who's doing that to, just go to someone. Yeah, their answer might be no. And I know hearing no is not fun, but you might be surprised. And maybe their no is a good reason. And maybe their no is like, well, not right now, but can I maybe when my
yeah,
schedule lightens up, can I reach back? Because sometimes we take the no's like, oh, well, they just don't care, or that's the end of that. But you may get some yeses. And now that a lot of these youth have experience and understand how it works and how actually rewarding it is. You start with something that looks a little tarnished, if you will, and you get something really shiny. It's so satisfying to do. So I'll put
I
that
enjoy
out
it.
there. Just set up a time. So I'll make sure we have more of the polish for next year because that's definitely going to be a repeat. I mean, I thought about like how can I show them like doing linens, but that would be I'd have to give that some more thought because I
That's
enjoy
more of
doing
a
the linens.
demonstration.
Yeah, more of a demonstration, you're
It's like,
correct.
"Hey, come over here and I'll show you to do it." It's less of, we can all do it 'cause
Correct.
we would need several, well, I do have a few irons and bar boards, but I'm
I
not
do
gonna
have
all
2, yeah.
you know?
No, you're right. That's good, demonstration, I'm gonna write that down. I will give a demo. I will give a demo. I'll put the table up on the chairs and raise it up and put my wool blanket down on the table. I'm tall, and so that's my solution. Easy
There you go.
peasy. Take the linens out of the
Then
freezer because we launder them and keep them
making
in the
hose
freezer.
making
Oh,
hose swap. That could be
we could
another
do that.
demonstration,
A demonstration.
now
Good,
put it
good.
in there. You can push down on that, and it's a lot of fun
Sure.
making hose.
The bishop would actually really enjoy that. I think we talked about that idea, but, it's one of those things, there's so many ideas, but what's practical, and it wasn't until we actually did it to see where would that fit in, how would that really work? Um,
We picked the things that seemed very doable on our end, and now we have that experience. See, we're also have that learn from this and experience, so
no, that's definitely, that'll be good, and I mean, I did, put in their schedule free time, but I also realized, like, I maybe don't have to make it as much maybe next year, but maybe, I don't
yep,
know. I just
yep.
but you don't wanna, like, overschedule, and ultimately, as Bridget put it there for me the first day, because I couldn't think of how that was supposed to work, but she's just time is subjective. Because obviously, I wasn't planning that first day that the bishops' conference was gonna be 40 minutes. Totally fine, and it was a good conference, and people will get an opportunity to listen to that, if not already by the time they listen to this. It was very engaging, and so I just didn't anticipate that. I was like, "He'll probably be done by 9." Like, "Nah, it was 9 something." Not the worst, but so that just kind of shifted the schedule a little bit, but blessed are the flexible so they don't get bent out of shape. You have a plan, but you're willing to, because something's gonna happen, something's gonna come up. I mean, when we went out on Wednesday, it was blocked from 10 to 5. Like, ideally, I would have liked to been out the door at 10, although that was probably not going to happen, but we were out the door before noon,
Yeah.
and it was a great outing, very enjoyable, and I opted I and if we were joking about this, because the father of the young people from Texas and his wife went on that outing. It gave us more room for passenger, to split up our passengers. But I also was saying, glad he's coming because then he can be the real older, the adult. Because if he hadn't been there, I would have been the oldest person, and then just like it just feels a little funny to me to have that role. But see, ultimately, I still would have defaulted to you because you're my superior in that instance. Like you're above me, and I mean, yes, specifically, Mr. Giles is my superior, but you also, I refer to you if he's not available. So you would actually been the main adult.
I would have been the heavy.
That's okay. But the thing is, with this age group, I didn't want to hold their hand, and they also don't need you to. I set guidelines, and we were very specific because there's different falls in this park, and so I said one way, let's go this way, meet back here, and we'll regroup. And then after we regroup, they can go the other way for this time period, and
I almost
they
had
did
a few falls myself.
great. But I was planning on hiking, but when I saw, like, the capabilities of everyone and who was going, I was like, I'll sit here with the stuff." And I even put my head down for a little cat nap. So, it it
Yeah,
it it was
it was nice.
worked out great. It
It was
worked
nice.
out great. So, well, shall I share with
Well,
us the, uh,
sure.
the
Some of
feedback
the feedbacks, thoughts, comments.
of how they felt
Sure.
of our retreat? So,
Okay.
first up, the youth retreat was an entirely transformative experience. So, there was a hyphen, and I have trouble with hyphenated words, especially when we do office, that always throws me. So the youth retreat was an entirely transformative experience. This person, my favorite thing was seeing the falls, referring to Letchworth Park. All right. Very good feedback. I really enjoyed making new friends that I could relate to and visiting the falls at Letchworth State Park. My favorite thing about the retreat was when Father Anthony was voice acting. And she puts in quote, the fun that never ends. You do a pretty fantastic Winnie the Pooh.
Thank you.
See, I think I'll save that. That's a good one.
I enjoy doing it so very much. Almost as much as I like honey.
Which you did get a nice jar of honey.
I
Thank you for
did.
that right
It's
away.
huge.
Yep.
We don't have to buy
We
honey
and
for a while.
you won't. Well, and as Essie says, we might actually procure more honey this year. We'll have to see. So,
Mm.
so we weren't definitely like shorting ourselves to give to you by any means. All right. My favorite thing was how informative Bishop Giles's sermons and talks were, and making friends.
Mhm.
My favorite thing about the youth retreat was making friends and meeting new people that share my religion. My favorite part about this youth retreat was all the friends I made and learning the rosary in Latin. My favorite part of the youth retreat was making new friends, saying the rosary in Latin, and enjoying all of God's blessings.
Mhm.
And finally, Bishop Giles' sermons were very inspirational and encouraging. That was my favorite part. So, and yes, we forced them all to write these things. I
Oh,
threatened no cookies unless they gave a glowing report. No,
yeah.
this was their honest.
It had to be done. Had to be done.
So beautiful and encouraging feedback for sure. I think
But
everybody
you
had a really nice time.
I it really was, I don't know who wrote what. I do know one who wrote about, my voice acting,
I suppose I could have shared their names. I didn't
but,
really think about it.
don't really have to. But the one who wrote transformative, I find that's very interesting, and it's like, whoever wrote that should say, "Don't let that just be a word you used to describe. Let that be the ideal in which you ascribe to."
Yeah.
Because we all, our entire faith is a transformative experience because we're transforming ourselves closer with Christ.
And I think it is actually a good word I would even use from my own experience. I felt
Mm,
transformed. I felt energized. And one of the things I kind of give myself a pep talk for going forward with everything I do, whenever we do these things, whether it's the youth retreat, children's retreat, our podcast, any of our publications, we always feel like it's not worth it unless we get a big return, like a big, like, oh, they really learned something. There's like, it's so obvious. but we're actually better off it being small, being, little,
Mhm,
a build up, higher,
mhm,
higher, going higher and higher and higher. I mean, it's great to, hear like these things from them, but I do think there's little things that maybe they don't realize yet that they'll be able to carry with them going forward. Because 'cause I'm carrying a lot of this with me. It's I wouldn't say I'm lonely here. I've adapted, the situation, but I am hoping someday we will have more sisters to do even bigger things. And there's a generation we talk a lot. There's a generation lost on that because how many never even met a religious sister? So how can you consider a vocation if you don't know what that is? And even for the priesthood, sure. Many of our young men have at least, gone to mass and see the priest offer the holy sacrifice of the mass, but they never really got to sit and talk with a priest. We were fortunate that we got to be around Father Bernard, Father Joseph, Sister Antonina, and we saw them when they had to be strict with us that we rightly deserved, but we also saw them having fun too, and ultimately it wasn't always realized when I was young, but as I got older, that you could really talk to them. I mean, as I pointed out before, prior to my coming here, you know who I talked to the most besides James, and you weren't available regarding my spiritual journey, not even religious life, was Father Joseph. And, if the time is good for him, he'll easily be on the phone an hour or 2 with you. It doesn't always work that way, but if he's
mhm.
got the time, he will sit and talk with you. And that goes the same with all of you. Just a reminder, if you need to talk, just come and talk. And I said if you need someone kind of to get you there, you're not quite ready to go to the come talk to me. I will do what I can to help you and encourage you. It's like, go talk to Father Anthony. He's a great listener and wiser than I ever thought you could be.
Huh,
I mean, speaking
that's
as your older
probably the
sister.
nicest thing it's probably the nicest thing you ever said to me.
All right, well, let's put the date on here. On June 21st, that's the time of this recording. I have said the
Ah,
nicest thing ever,
summer,
but
the
it it
beginning of
it's just
summer, the summer solstice.
s speaking as the oldest your older and only sister, and you being my youngest brother, there's just, you've seen the development. I mean, we've seen each other's development, and as you
Yeah,
even mentioned to me that you talked to some of the youth, you even like, I never really got into what might be described as immodest dress.
mhm.
But there was still when I started taking my faith more seriously, there was still, like, a difference. But I think but that was also internal. And when you start cooperating and wanting to know, love, and serve God, that outward appearance, you don't see it, but other people do. And I mean, a few people pointed out to me over the years that I didn't see myself. So just know that as long as you are really truly striving for those things, you're beautiful. Because we all are made in God's image and likeness, and the more and more we cooperate with him,
The better
the
we
happier
reflect that image.
and the happier we are. So,
Okay.
I probably could
Um,
keep going, but then it might get repetitive, so
good. Well, I am again, as we said, I am very encouraged. I hope the children are encouraged. I hope adults are encouraged. It's just so much about this. It all comes down to our faith, having it being a living faith, something that it is a part of us, not just the thing we do. And that's the thing that we really want to impress upon. As I said before, and I was quoting Bishop Giles, the whole purpose with the spiritual children that we have, whether we're talking about little children, young adults, or adults,
the mature
the
group.
mature and well preserved. Um,
Some more than others.
bu- but to make other Christs, to lead you into the faith, no matter what happens in this life, no matter what you have to endure, no matter what trials you have to face, whether it's coming from family, friends, enemies, you know that Christ is with you. And as long as Christ is with you, who can be against you? And as I told the children, virtue is sacrifice. Virtue is growing in Christ. And what you would remember is the man who kneels before God stands before anyone. And to develop that conviction for the faith, that love for the faith. And that's what it's all about. That's why every sacrifice that we can make, that we can do for our children, for our youth, every sacrifice is worth it. It's worth it. And with that, sister, Deo Gratias.
Deo Gratias.